giving up everyone, including her husband, who's been deported. So whatever climate is happening in this futuristic Canadian government, hopefully futuristic fictional Canadian government.
Emphasis on fiction.
You know, but there is this sense of being watched in our world. I mean, these seeds are planted in truth and in reality, even though they're taken to a place that is fictional. You know, what if? And what if we were being watched? What if it was a question of obedience versus death? Kathleen has chosen obedience, so she's willing to hang everyone out to dry in order to save herself.
Yeah, I think the message that the play seems to, or the question that the play is asking is, you know, what if your freedom was taken away simply for expressing an opinion? And that is definitely unjust, but I mean, many times you can't imagine that being taken away. And Emma's character has taken full advantage of that. She understands, you know, her rights and all this stuff, and she wants to blither on about what she feels needs to be said. And just the idea of being holed in this little room just for thinking her thoughts is just too preposterous. So she's still wrapping her brain around that. And I guess if it hasn't happened to you, you know, it's just you can't imagine it. But since it is happening to these characters, or to Emma for the first time, she hasn't resigned to it like Kathleen has, and so it's still mind-boggling. But yeah, just the idea of something that we take for granted, like justice and all that, when it comes along and when somebody comes along and takes that away from you, then that is, I guess it's a shock to the nerves.
I'd like to just bring to mind this feeling of being watched too, because I mean, right here in this very little atrium, there's a camera there, there's a camera there, there's a mirror there, there's another camera there, and I purposely chose the speaker to refer my attention to, because it's too freaky to actually sit here and talk to a real camera where someone's actually recording me. You know, we go to an airport and it's too intimate to let someone actually, you know, frisk us. So we're going to stand in a scanner and expose ourselves to radiation and let someone in some unknown room somewhere look at us naked. That's essentially what we're doing when we go through those security things at the airport. So, I mean, these things exist in our world, and we just take them for granted and walk around like, oh yeah, that's okay, because it's for our safety. Where does it stop?
Yeah, there's a line in the play, in the excerpt that was just read, where Kathleen says something along the lines, and I can't remember it verbatim, but something along the lines of you know, isn't it funny? You're suddenly, you know, bang, you're suddenly in the know. What I try to do with this concept of the regulatory committee for the maintenance of inoffensive media content is have them be representative of the larger culture, and have them be representative of political correctness in the way that the language of political correctness functions as a social construct. We are constantly having to euphemize, and constantly having to watch what we say, and constantly having to think very carefully about the ways in which we word things. And so you see that in the rapport between the two characters, where they're, you know, isn't it better to, and now I can't remember the line, I made you memorize it. You know, isn't it better to, or more efficient to say what you mean rather than to force me to deduce what you mean, you know, and so on and so forth. That, you know, I really wanted to stress the point that, you know, this is what political correctness sort of reduces us to, is that we're constantly talking in code and constantly unable to address the issues that are covered in our play, in this play, in our daily lives, because we're at a point where we can't even, how can you have dialogue when you can't articulate these concepts? Is essentially the point of the play.
Very good.
I thought I would.
I like the explanation.
No,
that was deep.
deep discussions here. So I thought I would just open the floor to a few questions from the audience for the actors. I guess what we've been talking about and what we just heard.
I just have a comment. You're talking about otherness, and you're talking about all these different things, and I love the way it's layered, because you have your sort of triangle effect. You have your government. There's a layer there and a concept there. You have your relationship between black and white. There's a layer there and a concept there. You have the fact that you're women. There's a layer and a concept there. So the otherness goes right through. It's kind of flowing right through the play, right in the excerpt that I saw, and I can really dig that. That's really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good job, guys.
I was just going to say about you sort of have two levels of censorship too, where you have the censorship of the government, but you also have people's personal censorship about what they're not saying, and also how people censoring each other's perceptions of the world, like, I don't accept your perception, therefore is my perception better than yours, or which perception are we going to choose?
Yeah, it's kind of a cat and mouse between who's right.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about, I really liked the part of the play where you talk about that we create our own, the way we see the world, or the way we are seen by the world. It's a product of we created ourselves. And I'm just wondering if you had anything that goes further in your play about that, or is it a theme you explore generally? About,
it's a theme that has a tendency to run through a lot of the work that I do. I can't speak to the rest of the script. It's a work in progress at the moment, and that's why we had this reading today, so I could, sort of hear what it sounds like. But yeah, it is a theme that I'm working with and playing around with, and hope to explore more for the final production.
I was also wondering how much you explore, if you're writing, say, about black identity, how much do you explore otherness within that?
That is the basis of the play, so that would be sort of the deepest point of delve in terms of the narrative. I think, again, like as I mentioned earlier, that's not my singular point of reference, right? So I, have a tendency to sort of write in a way that, yes, it speaks to blackness, but it also speaks to the universality of that experience where, marginalization occurs, or, otherness is felt. And so, everything in the play will be relatable back to the black community, but will also be able to be, relatable to women, or to the gay community, or to, other ethnic minorities, or to immigrants. Because I think that's, we would use concrete concepts, but really, the universality is what people can hang on to, and hopefully that would sort of widen the scope for the audience. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the play. It was brilliant.
What is your purpose behind writing the play? Because you have so many different messages. If you had to choose one, what would you want to tell your audience? Because it talks about women issues, it talks about being black, it talks about the whole culture and structure, but what message do you really feel that you want to get through?
The point of the play is, we need dialogue in order to be able to progress as a society. We need to be able to talk to each other. We need to be able to communicate with each other. And so the play stresses the point throughout the script of, just articulate to me what it is you're trying to say, because we can't have a discussion unless you can articulate to me what it is that you want me to understand. And so that would be the basis.
And it seems like the characters, they're so distrusting of each other that they can't fully communicate or articulate. They don't trust the other character to, like they won't be vulnerable to the other person because they figure that they're going to use that to their advantage, considering they're in a jail cell and all this other stuff is looming over them, and then because they're not communicating properly or like they should, then that creates a lot of tension. That's like a huge obstacle.